Hi folks, if you're listening to this episode on the day of its release, it is Christmas Day, so I would like to sincerely wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. This time of year forces us to slow down for a bit, enjoy the festivities, and take a moment to recognize what's really important in life. Unfortunately, along with those sentiments, I recognize that this time of year can often be difficult for a lot of people who may have a harder time seeing a bright light at the end of the tunnel. I just want to say that if you're depressed, defeated, or just lonely today, please feel free to reach out to me at disneycoasttocoast@gmail.com to say hello. I'll be sure to check my email and reply throughout the day to ensure that you feel a little less alone on this sometimes difficult day. I can't thank you enough for listening to Disney Coast to Coast, and I truly wish you much joy and success in this upcoming decade. Now on with the show.
Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and on today's show, I have my buddy Chris joining me to discuss the end of the Skywalker saga in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Typically, Season 6 of Disney Coast to Coast would have ended last week, but when I looked at the scheduling of this film's release, I just knew that I needed to extend the season. It's been quite a year for Star Wars, with the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World, but this 42-year journey of the Skywalker saga really is quite epic. When the original Star Wars movie opened in May of 1977, it was expected to be a huge bomb and opened on just over 30 movie screens throughout the entire country. It was expected to fail. Of course, we all know that history had a different plan for Star Wars and George Lucas. One of the big and splashy theaters where it opened on that historic day was Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. I just knew that when it was announced that the Skywalker saga was coming to an end, I wanted to see it where it all started, in Hollywood's famous Chinese theater, now named the TCL Chinese Theater. Leading up to opening night, I binged episodes 1 through 8, and I was ready to watch that final chapter. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about our experience and our thoughts on Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Grab some popcorn and silence your cell phones, because it's time for the Disney Movie Review.
Alrighty, it is like 1:30 in the morning. We just got out of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. We went to the Chinese Theater in Hollywood to see it where it all started. Overall, quick, just yay, nay, still thinking about it. How you feeling?
I liked it better than the last one, but not as good as the first one.
Oh, and you're talking about the new trilogy?
The new trilogy, yes.
Okay, cool. I had a lot of fun. I thought it was a lot of fun overall. Before we jump into specifics here, I do want to run through, just because this is confusing for some people, and I totally get it. If you're not a die-hard Star Wars fan, the numbering, the episodes, is a little confusing. So, episodes 4, 5, and 6, those are the films that came out from 1977 to 1983. Those are A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Then there were prequels from 1999 to 2005. We had episodes 1, 2, and 3. Those were The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. And then when Disney got involved, that was episodes 7, 8, and 9. That's 2015 to 2019 currently, with Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. So it's, it's definitely confusing. If you're not, like, people even who know Star Wars will be like, oh, yeah, I'm watching episode 4 tonight. So, like, wait a sec, which one? And it's, it's a weird thing. So in any case, that's how it works. And you're a big Star Wars fan, and I don't think I really know, where did that start for you?
Started, back when I was a kid and stuff, and was exposed to the original trilogy of 4, 5, and 6.
So like VHS?
VHS, yeah.
Okay.
So I had all the VHSs. I didn't see those in theaters. I was too young at the time, but...
Interesting, because I was more of I knew of them because I had older sisters, and I remember like seeing books with C-3PO in it and stuff, but I didn't really know his name. R2-D2, I picked up his name. C-3PO, I actually didn't know his name for the longest time, and it wasn't until 1997 with the special edition theatrical re-releases that I sat and watched them for the first time, which I know is like blasphemy for a lot of Star Wars fans out there, but I liked them.
Well, I mean, unless you had a parent who was super into those films growing up, you probably wouldn't have been introduced to them that much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got ancillary stuff through kids at school.
Yeah.
You know, they'd bring in the toys and the stuff, you know, in their backpack and whatnot. My parents weren't into the movies, so like I was never exposed to them just by nature. And I remember loving those toys and coveting those toys and wanting those toys. I think I may have stolen one from a kid once.
Some kid on the playground, you're like, it's mine.
I got found out immediately, though, because I put it in my backpack. I took it out of his and put it in mine, and it was like the teacher just went through the backpacks and found it.
Which figure was it?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was...
Boba Fett.
No, it wasn't Boba Fett. I think it was like Jabba the Hutt, honestly. It was like some...
That's amazing. I love that. So, I've been saying for a long time that I was going to end the Skywalker saga at the Chinese theater where, Star Wars had a big opening. It opened really only on like 32 screens because it was expected to be a bomb. But the Chinese theater was one of 32 screens in like the entire country. It was somewhere around 32. And so like it's kind of become the home base for Star Wars films. This is the first time I've ever seen one in that theater. And I've been saying for years now, I'm gonna do this. Like, frankly, I'm flying home later for Christmas than I normally would because I wanted to see it in this theater. Did that enhance it at all for you? Or were you like, meh, whatever, I'm just going to see the movie?
It's funny because... Yeah, from a historical standpoint, it is cool to have seen it there where it all kind of once began. It was weird because they didn't really enhance it that much at the theater. Like you said, they had stanchions up and they were covering the Star Wars, hand footprints.
Yeah, the handprints were like covered by a queue essentially. And I'm like, that should have been, especially since it's like very much toward the front, that should have been separate and kind of highlighted, I felt. They did have a little step and repeat. They had some, I think, fan-made costumes in the lobby or something.
But aside from that, the theater itself, like it was cool for a moment to go, man, back then, this is where kind of it all began. They've had extensive renovations in there when they turned to IMAX and stuff. Yeah. So it's not exactly the exact same theater. I mean, it is, but
the architecture is the same. But yeah.
But aside from that, the second that reverence is over, it's just like I kind of wish I was at an AMC with like bigger seats and reclining, like we just got spoiled to the movie going experience these days.
I thought they were actually quite comfortable. I don't go to that theater a lot because it's it's not a cheap theater and it's out of the way for me and got to pay for parking and all that stuff. So I only go for like special events. And I'm really happy I went for this. I thought it was a lot of fun and I had a great night.
It was awesome.
Even though Hollywood and Highland, there was a police chase going on, so the night started crazy. But we got there and it was fine. Now, I also love the tie-in, especially now with the Chinese theater. You may not know this, but in Walt Disney World at Disney's Hollywood Studios, they have a replica of the theater and they actually do a Star Wars projection and fireworks show on the theater now. So it's kind of cool, like how it's just come full circle and that theater just ties into Star Wars so beautifully. I love it. So I'm so thrilled I did it there. It was great. I also said for a long time, I'm going to see this movie and I'm going to follow it up watching 1 through 8. And over the past week, I did binge them, and I was up late nights watching these movies to get ready for it. I'm so happy I did that. There's a few things I want to hit on before we get on our opinions on the new film. Episode 3 is a great movie. I know you hate them. You hate 1 through 3.
I can't follow you down that road, my man.
Well, you see Darth Vader become Darth Vader.
Yeah, but I didn't need to see that. I didn't need midichlorians to be explained. I didn't need to see Vader become Vader. And they did it in kind of a weird, kind of cheesy, hokey way anyways.
Because you're going to go to the no.
Yeah,
okay.
That's one thing.
Okay.
Of many.
Well, I will tell you this. When I was rewatching episode 6, so that would be Return of the Jedi, when Darth Vader grabs the Emperor, throws him over his, picks him up over his head and throws him in that pit, there's a no that comes out of Darth Vader's mouth. So I just want to say, for the people who give crap for that Hayden Christensen no moment, I think it's totally in character. And frankly, I believe it. Like, you can pick apart his performance as much as you want. There are bad moments that come out, of some line deliveries are horrible. But I blame the writing for most of that stuff. And the no is a ridiculous nitpicky thing that people get crazy about, and I can't stand it.
By the time it rolled around in the prequels, it had become a cliched nightmare, right? So like that no thing when James Earl Jones kind of uttered it after tossing the Emperor into the pit and stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. At the time, I don't know if that was done a ton by then, but by the time it rolled around to this, it's been like, it's a cliche thing. It's
man.
lame.
By the way, so with episode 3, that would be Revenge of the Sith, that was the last time I thought I would have the last chance to see a midnight screening of a Star Wars movie, because that was supposedly the final one. George Lucas said, this is it. I'm not going any further with this. And I remember going into Boston with my brother out of the way to see it in Boston at midnight, back when they actually did midnight screenings, none of this 6 p.m. crap that they do now. But so I just think it's funny how I've now twice in my life, you are convinced there's going to be another Skywalker Saga movie.
These are million, if not billion-dollar franchises. There's no way they're just going to go, say la vie. No way. They're going to bring it back.
But you think I would say there's a chance of that, but I'm saying like 20 years.
There's no way it's going to be 20. You're like dreaming.
You think in 3 years there's going to be another Skywalker
Maybe
movie.
not 3, but I'm telling you right now, they're not leaving they're not leaving money on the table.
All right. We'll see. But as of right now, it is the final Skywalker movie. I also want to touch on just kind of the technology through the years by watching 1 through 9 now. It was interesting because in the original trilogy, so 4, 5, 6, everything's very handmade, right? Obviously, computer technology isn't what it is now, or wasn't what it is now. And so everything looks very handmade, but kind of like fake and cheap just because of the time it was made. Awesome, but a little cheap. Then we go to episodes 1, 2, 3, where everything is like digital and bad digital a lot of the time. It's weird because it came so many years after Jurassic Park, yet Jurassic Park looks a billion times better than most of the computer-generated stuff in those prequels, I would say. The thing I love about the now Disney sequel or trilogy is that it kind of mixes both worlds, and like Star Wars feels real to me now. Like that universe feels like a real place, way more than it ever did.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they do a good job at blending the technologies and stuff, and they specifically have gone out of their way to replicate some of those visual effects. The as you call it, cheesy kind of nostalgia effects of those days.
Yeah.
So like, when planets blow up, it has the same like model planet blowing up the way that it did in a studio back in the day type feel, right? Which is nice. And even in things like The Mandalorian now on Disney Plus and stuff, they've gone back to a lot of those kind of practical effects for those, the eyeball on a stick thing that comes out of the wall and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's great. And as far as the digital side goes, using, back in the day, they used to do matte paintings for backgrounds and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Doing digital matte paintings for backgrounds, if it's like a faraway shot and all that kind of stuff, that's great. It looks beautiful. It's all good. Some of the things that still stick out as kind of cheesy digital effects for me are the ships.
You think so?
Oh yeah, when the Falcon and all that kind of stuff is flying around, it feels very CGI to me still. But they've done a good job at bringing some practical effects back into the mix, which is nice.
Yeah. It feels like I said, it feels like a real world to me, which I really love and appreciate. One thing I will say, watching, and I know people have said this is nothing, new that I'm saying here, but one thing that really shocked me watching them all in a row, like I recently did, is that episode 7 really is episode 4. It's a carbon copy, and 8 is 5. Like, it's crazy how similar their storylines are. From, the beginning of 7, you got BB-8 getting these secret plans put in a droid that, like, have to be given to somebody else, just like R2-D2 getting the plans in episode 4. And
the directive at the time, I remember, was they wanted to, as I understand it, they wanted to basically reboot the franchise for a younger generation. So they wanted to kind of remake it. And so in a lot of ways, it was like remake A New Hope with The Force Awakens, but introduce new characters that a younger generation can kind of,
And that's 100% what they did. And I'd heard that, and I even agreed with that in the past, but it was not until like watching them all in a row that I was like, whoa. Like I said, 7 is 4 and 8 is 5. And they're enjoyable movies. I like them, but they're shockingly similar.
I am going to take issue with comparing Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi to A New Hope. I mean, not A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back.
Listen, I'm not saying they're better or worse. I'm just saying, as far as beats in storytelling, the beats are very similar. And it was just surprising to me. I was shocked by it.
Yeah.
You still disagree?
Yeah. Still with
Go
the
back
beats
and watch
even.
them.
You tell me where the pony ride through the rich casino is in Empire. I don't think that's...
Like I said, it's not exactly the same, but the beats and storytelling are there. It's interesting. Just wanted to point that out. Enough about that. We're going to jump into Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. And I just want to start off by congratulating two people who probably are not listening to this, but I want to congratulate them anyway. John Williams, who has written the score for every single Skywalker Star Wars movie, and Anthony Daniels, who has portrayed C-3PO in every single one of them. As far as I know, they're the only two people involved in these films that have been in every one spanning 42 years. Even George Lucas didn't do that. It's unbelievable to me. I mean, what a legacy. Yeah, I'm just so thrilled that John Williams has been around long enough to have made that happen. Like, that would have been tremendously sad if he didn't get to complete it. So I'm so happy for that. I also loved, there was a tweet that Mark Hamill sent out basically reminding people this all started because of George Lucas. And I know people love to throw trash at George Lucas these days. But man, what an amazing, world he's created in 42 years is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, it's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I really do want to. I'm curious because, it's very publicly known now that George Lucas and Disney have kind of, he's made it known that he's not happy with the way they've gone, the direction they've gone with the story. Mark Hamill's made similar comments publicly. So I kind of want to know the story George wanted to tell. And/or I kind of want to know the story that J.J. Abrams wanted to tell if Carrie Fisher hadn't passed away. Like, there are different Star Wars movies out there that don't exist that once would have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And, I'm a huge fan of, obviously, the original trilogy. Prequels, not so much. So I think I was ready to tap out of the George vision a little bit there, because I was like, I gotcha. I see where you're going with this. You're right in the sense that if I could have a conversation with him, I don't necessarily know if I want him helming some films there.
What if it was just like he influenced the story? Because the only ones he directed were episodes 1, 2, and 3, which were the three prequels in the 90s to early 2000s, and then episode 4, the original Star Wars. 5 and 6 he did not direct. He produced and he was involved with story. So what if he had just been involved with story for the new ones?
I think, maybe that could have been okay. It depends on how tightly he was still holding on.
Yeah, I just want to, it's Star Wars is his vision, right? So I kind of just want to know what his vision was. Like it or not, I kind of just want to know what it all was. I secretly hope he releases like some novels where like the characters' names are like, Drake Walkskyer, where for a fact he's talking about Luke Skywalker, but he can't use the name legally anymore.
No.
So
when I say book, I mean like a biography. I don't need Drake Sky Skipper or whatever you said.
Drake Walkskyer.
Yeah.
I want to hear his stories, or what you said, just beat sheets, but he can't legally do that, right? Like, I don't think he's allowed. He doesn't own these characters anymore, so I don't think he can do stuff like that. So that's what I'm saying. He should do like.
He could become the greatest fanfic writer in the Star Wars universe.
Totally. I kind of really do want to see that, not going to lie.
That's like the snake eating its own tail, though. If George Lucas became a fanfic writer of his own franchise, I don't know.
That'd be funny. Anyway, guys, we are heading into major spoiler territory here. We are going to talk about details in The Rise of Skywalker. So you have been warned. Hopefully you've seen it at this point. If you haven't, hit pause, come back later if you don't want anything spoiled. So I'm just going to start. Chris, where do you want to start with this? Is there anything in particular with Rise of Skywalker? We're going to go all over the place here, but where do you want to start?
The place I want to start is, it felt to me very much the way that it ended up playing out, politically speaking, within the company, right? So there was a vision that JJ had for the reboot and Force Awakens, which he kind of did, and I thought was great. I enjoyed the movie a lot, right?
And he wasn't supposed to direct this one, was he?
No.
Wasn't he? Was kind of brought in because the second one wasn't as successful or something, right?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what went down there. All I know is like he had that original vision and set up a lot of good stuff in that first movie. Then Rian Johnson came in and tore all of that down to the ground. And then this movie seemed to try its best to ignore the Rian Johnson film and kind of tie up essentially what JJ tried to set up back in the day. And so it very much felt like a tug of war between two different ideas of where they wanted this franchise to go.
Yeah, it's so funny. I don't feel that way. I recognize that these films are frankly, each trilogy, they're all very different feel, right? Like they feel like three trilogies, even though it's all one saga. So those I understand feel separate. I didn't really feel like 2 was that much. 8 was that much different than 7 in my mind. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I'm
it
just
definitely was. Like if you,
fan.
for example, if you look at the prequels and you kind of go back and see where they began with that episode 1 and see where they end on episode 3, they feel very cohesive, right? The things that happen in 1 influence 2, and the things in 2 influence 3.
Sure.
When you go, and same goes for the original trilogy. When you go to these new ones, tell me one thing that carried over from that Rian Johnson film.
I just watched it the other night, but I still can't remember it all that well. I mean,
like if you took it out completely.
Okay, well, the whole Kylo, I believe in Last Jedi, that's the first time we had Kylo Ren and Rey speaking with each other when they weren't together, right? Whatever that's called, like their whole telekinesis thing, I think was introduced in that film. I don't think that existed in 7. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't think that's introduced in 7. I could be
No, it definitely
mistaken.
is. It's definitely in 7. Remember when she gets captured and she's on the ship and
I don't think it's in 7. Somebody will write in and let me know. But I'm pretty sure that was something introduced
and if it did carry over, it's only because they introduced a world rule now that you can't. I mean, how do you go take backsies on that?
There are a lot of things in this film that I was like, first of all, my jaw dropped literally several times watching it. And there were definitely things where I'm like, oh, that stormtroopers fly now. We've got the Rocketeer in the Star Wars universe.
Well, that's another thing. We're going to touch on my thoughts on that in a second, too. But just going back to those films feeling cohesive, I mean, honestly, there's nothing in there that there was maybe the Rose-Finn romance a little bit that carried over, or there's...
Yeah, but that doesn't even carry over because in this film, Finn has a thing for Rey. Does he not?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Wasn't he trying to tell her that he loved her?
We never found out.
I'm pretty sure that's what he was trying to tell her. So, I found that weird because Rose was still around, but I was like, he doesn't seem to be paying much attention to her. He seems much more interested in Rey right now. So,
another thing
to make your case in point, that is something that if that's actually what they were going for, which is how I interpreted it, then yeah, they completely were like, forget that. I mean, obviously things like Luke Skywalker, being a spirit ghost now, you can't really undo that.
Yeah, you can't undo killing Snokes.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you kind of could. The Emperor's still around, right? I mean...
I guess.
So, yeah. Talk to me about your thoughts on this flying stormtrooper, though.
So, for me, my other thought about the film was it felt very much to me like they were going, hey, we're wrapping up this franchise and we're starting new things, like on Disney Plus with The Mandalorian and other stuff.
Sure.
Quick. Get as many toys and as many locales that we can kind of reuse going forward into the future out there. They had a brainstorming meeting and they threw everything into it. So they were like, jetpacks for stormtroopers, orange cracks in Kylo Ren's helmet.
I do love those orange cracks, though.
I don't.
Oh, I love them.
Oh,
I think
bad.
Kylo Ren is the sexiest evil man around. Oh
my God.
Yeah, no, I really like Kylo Ren quite a bit. Yeah, those red cracks, I love it. And the voice modulator, love it. It's a good package all around.
But all that stuff, I was just like, oh, toys. Oh, toys. Oh, a new robot? Oh, no toys.
The new droid, especially, I was like, that is definitely...
a new lightsaber, new outfits, new... Sure. I mean, they were just quick, get as many marketing things that we can get into this movie as possible.
I will tell you what toy I do want to see. I know characters like BB-8 and what are those little furry things called?
The Porgs?
The Porgs. These things are created to sell stuffed animals and toys and all that stuff. But the character that I think is... one of my absolute favorite characters was introduced in this film was that little guy working on C-3PO's brain. That is the funniest little, most adorable creature I've ever seen. I have no idea what his name is or what species he is, but holy moly, the cutest, and I'm totally in love with that character. That needs to be a toy. That needs to be a meet and greet in a Disney park. Heck, they did it with Baby Groot. They need to do it with that character.
I'm sure he'll be around.
Oh, I loved that character. Way better than that new droid they introduced. Oh, forget that. But
So it felt like basically a cash grab for as many marketable ideas as they could muster.
sure.
I get it. I understand why.
Sure.
They're just kind of like explode, Star Wars universe explode quick so that we can, use parts of this going forward and whatever else we want to use. And they just kind of pumped it full of all that stuff, which is, again, I get it. See, I know why, but
Listen,
still,
they need product for Galaxy's Edge, man.
That's what I'm saying. It felt very much that way in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Now, I just kind of jotted down a list of thoughts I had when the credits started rolling, just stuff I could remember I jotted down. So this is going to be all over the place, so I apologize. But one thing I found strangely interesting was, the Star Wars universe has always had a lot of weird creatures we've never seen built out of, puppetry and stuff like that ever since the beginning. But this one had horses dressed in costumes, pretending to be other creatures.
Well, they did that with the with like banthas and stuff.
Yeah, but like those were full on costumes. Like that was, in fact, the banthas were like,
They're like elephants and like these big.
yeah, but you never saw an elephant. You know what I mean? Like you could tell these were horses, and it was strange to me. I was like, oh, there's like a hybrid horse creature thing in this. It took me out of the world, to be honest. I was like, this is the first creature I found to be unbelievable ever in a Star Wars movie. It was very weird to me. I don't know why, but it took me out of it. Not for you,
Interesting. No, I mean, I get where it is. It did have a little bit of a feeling of like a 70s, TV show feel
It felt
to that
cheap.
stuff.
For this Star Wars movie, like it felt weird.
But that's what I'm saying. I feel like they kind of looked forward and they were like, what can we use in like a show like The Mandalorian? And they wanted to set some things up that they could put on TV that ties in without it being too expensive.
Perhaps. We'll see. By the way, jump in with anything you want to say here. I'm just kind of going through bullet points. John Williams has a cameo in this movie. This is the first time we're ever seeing John Williams on screen. It's about a second or two long, so I don't even think you caught it, did you?
No, you pointed it out, but it was like, it was very quick. And he had this big monocle thing on his face, and so he kind of was half obscured and stuff.
Yeah, but I loved that. Once again, as a man who has been involved with this franchise for 42 years now, I think he deserves 2 seconds of screen time. I think it's great, and I hope the residuals treat him well. And then one thing I love about J.J. Abrams' projects is I love seeing his cast members that he's worked with come back. It's kind of like a game at this point because it's so obvious. People from Lost, people from Felicity, people from Alias, like you see all these people he's worked with. It cracks me up. Greg Grunberg, the heavyset guy with the beard, who ends up getting killed in this one. Oh my gosh. From
Alias.
I know him from Felicity, but he does everything JJ does. He was in Lost for an episode or two. And so it's great seeing him. Kerry Russell, who I didn't even recognize. I forgot she was in this, but she's the girl in the mask. And I don't know. I just think it's a fun game, playing the JJ casting favorites game. We've got to talk about something that happens at the end of the film. I didn't love this moment, but Kylo Ren, or Ben at this point, and Rey kiss. There's like a legit kiss love scene. I don't know. I don't know how I felt about that.
I don't really know how I felt about that either.
And then he dies immediately after.
It felt, the whole love story to me between, Rey and Kylo felt very like 6th grade. You know what I mean? It's like I throw pencils at you all year, but I really like you. You know what I mean? And I don't know how I feel about it.
Yes, I 1000% agree. Now we do.
Maybe it was younger than 6th grade. I don't know if I was doing that in 6th grade, but
no, I totally know what you're talking about though. Pulling the girl's ponytail or whatever.
Whatever. It was very antagonistic, and then it was like. You see, back in the old like movies from the 50s and stuff, it's like, come here, you. It's like, no, it's like smacking each other around, and next thing you know, they're like in an embrace, and you're like, what?
There's a little bit of that, but we do learn something pretty huge about Rey in this film, and that is that she is a Palpatine, which, I think a lot of people went into this, myself included, saying, oh, we're going to find out she's a Skywalker, right? The Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker, to me, kind of meant a few different things in this. At the end, she kind of takes on the name, so there is a new Skywalker that exists in the story and the world now. We also see Leia Skywalker essentially rise into the heavens. And then we also see Luke Skywalker appear once again in his ghostly form, so he's rising in that sense. So there's a lot of Skywalker rising in this film.
I took it as the Rise of Skywalker is the redemption of Ben. Because Ben is a Skywalker.
That's another one, yeah.
Yeah, so him basically casting the Sith out and basically finding his true self again is the rising of the Skywalker to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I buy that too. So, like, to me, there's a lot of Rise of Skywalkers in this movie, and I kind of like that about it. I thought it was cool. The kiss, I'm going to pretend.
I think it's cool. The kiss, as far as the kiss goes, like, again, whatever. If you're into that, that's cool. If not, it's all good. That didn't really bug me as much as the WTF moment immediately after the kiss, where it's like we kiss.
Where he dies?
I mean, he does. I mean, you don't truly die when you merge with the Force. But
That's
yes,
true, yes.
The idea that it was just a weird, goofy moment where he appears to be alive and well. They smooch. He smiles, and then he just lays down immediately and fades away within like 2 seconds.
But before that, he brings Rey back to life, who was dead, like essentially.
Yeah,
he brings her back to life. So here's how it goes. We see the Emperor, my favorite character, the Emperor destroy Ben, Kylo Ren. I don't think
he destroys him.
I mean, he throws him into a pit. We're supposed to think he's dead. And then Rey battles the Emperor with some epic... First of all, I'll get to that in a second, but an epic battle between the Emperor and Rey. She uses all of her energy and powers. It essentially kills her as well as the Emperor. But then Rey climbs out of this hole that he was just thrown into, finds her dead body, brings her back to life. They kiss. He dies. He rises with the Force. Like, that's essentially what goes down. That's a little crazy for like 2 minutes of a film. It's a lot of stuff happening.
It is a lot of stuff. And, I don't know, man. I just don't know about the beats of it all. For me, at least, it's like there's a moment where they both essentially get drained of their life energy or life force, and they're on the ground.
By the way, she plays dead really well. That was one of the best dead performances I've ever seen in my life. To the point that I was like, are they CGing something with her eyes? She looked like glossed over dead. She's great.
There's a moment that happens a lot in films these days where, like, especially in Disney films, when I was a kid, Bambi's mom gets shot, and that's the end of that. You know, Simba's dad gets trampled to death, done.
Frozen, the parents are dead. They still do it.
But there's these things nowadays where, there's these weird kind of cop-outs and moments that I think that adults think kids need, but I don't necessarily think that they do. And this has one of those where, she's on the ground and she's just like essentially feeling defeated, and she kind of reaches out with the Force and kind of, I don't know, seeks validation or support from, previous Jedis, and I don't know why we needed that.
You mean when Luke Skywalker appeared?
When all the voices, no, it's not that when all the voices start talking to her and they're like, we're beside you, and we're here for you, and we got you, you got this, and don't worry, we're always with you. And it's like, do we need this?
I think it's because
do we need this?
I think we wanted to hear Yoda. Honestly, I think it was
he
a
was
fan
in there for 2 seconds.
But I think that was a fan service. We heard everybody. Hayden Christensen was in there, and
it felt like a thematic beat that somebody was like, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we paid homage to all these, Force Jedis and all that kind of." We don't need it. It looks good on paper for a brief second, but like it cheapens her moment for me.
Okay, fair enough.
She should learn that she's good enough to tackle this on her own and do it. And I don't need it to be like, well, if they hadn't talked to her and like given her a little support there, she wouldn't have been able to do it. Like, that's just stupid.
To me, it felt like, how do we get these characters that people love in the film for a moment?
Equally as stupid, though.
Sure. I won't disagree that that's not a good enough reason to do it, but I think that was more the reason why. We've been talking a lot about death. I want to keep it going there because jaw drop moment, legit thought Chewie was dead. Did you think he was dead?
Oh yeah, I thought he was dead, and that was another thing that was a little like antagonistic of the audience, because it's like we see him board the ship, and then we see the ship blow up, and you're like, oh my god, Chewie's dead, and then all of a sudden he's not.
Yeah,
and there's no explanation. It's just the only explanation is he must have been on a different transport. Wait, what?
We only saw one ship. Yeah.
What?
Totally. But it was what they were trying to do was effective, because listen, it's the last one. Everybody's fair game. You can kill everybody. And they kind of did it to a couple of characters and then brought him back for us. So Chewie, we think he's dead, and it goes for several minutes where it's not like an immediate, oh, he's safe. I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes later, I think we realize he's not actually gone, But
what was the point of it?
Oh, to make me drop my jaw.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's antagonistic. Yeah. It felt like things happened just for the sake of gimmick, which bugs me about the new Star Wars films.
Okay, fair enough. But they got the reaction they wanted from the audience.
For a second.
So this game was played again, kind of in the trailer, even more so in the film, because at this point, the whole Chewie thing had happened, and so we were already set up for this. Okay, they're going to try and like take away every character from us and then give them back to us just to get our emotions rolling. And so that's why I say this moment in the trailer was actually more effective for me. When C-3PO, he's essentially he's being rewired to get information that they need. And by doing that, he's losing all of his memories. And he knows that this is going to happen. And so there's that moment where he says he just like basically wants to take one final look at his friends. And in the trailer, I was like, holy moly, we're losing C-3PO in this movie. But by the time we got to that in the movie, I'm like, somebody's going to fix him. The memories are going to come back for C-3PO at some point, just because they had done that Chewie thing.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the new conceit these days in films, where it's like, no one's ever really gone, and just like cry on their shoulder and their back, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't like it. You can't set the stakes and then take it away. They were like, hey, how about we store his memory banks in the R2 unit? And he's like, no. R2 units memory banks are notoriously, unreliable or unstable. And we never see him back his memory banks into R2. And yet somewhere at the end of the movie, R2's like, here, I'm going to put you back to boop, boop. And he's like, oh, hello, I've got my memories back. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where'd that happen?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, man. There's stuff.
There's stuff for sure. I do want to talk about one thing that genuinely shocked me, because I thought he was done with Star Wars. Harrison Ford is in this movie, looking a little rough, but
I thought he looked great.
I thought he looked rough, but he's dead, so it's cool. I guess we can accept that. But I thought he was done with this. Frankly, I was surprised to see him at the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Just, this one's for you, Peter.
Best moment of the year.
Best moment. That may have been one of the best Star Wars moments of the year for sure. But if you don't know what we're talking about, watch the opening ceremony of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. But in any case, he does appear in this film. Of course, he is Kylo Ren's father, Ben's father, and there's a nice moment with them. I was just in shock, because I don't think this was a known thing. I don't think it was on IMDb, or I haven't heard people talking about, oh, Harrison Ford's coming back for this one, because a lot of people said the only reason he agreed to come back for episode 7 was so that they would kill him off and there'd be no reason to bring him back. So I was shocked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was shocked to see him in there as well. Again, it was a moment that seemed thematically nice on paper, but worked a little cheesy on film, you know what I mean? It wasn't like he came back as a Force ghost, or, it was just a memory Kylo had, but it wasn't really a memory because it was all new, and he was saying these new things to him in this new location, so it wasn't something that had happened and therefore was a memory. It was, it was his, I guess, memory of his dad in a new reenact. I don't know. It's basically how he remembered his dad, and as if his dad was talking to him. But again, that's really weird to me. Like, it kind of comes out of nowhere for me.
I guess I'm just willing to suspend my disbelief a tremendous amount in the world of Star Wars, because there are things that I feel like in a lot of other franchises and movies I would question and have problems with. I just am like, cool. This is what life is like in this galaxy. Cool. And I'm just cool with it. And I'm glad I am, because it makes these films far more enjoyable. The reviews I've seen people, granted, we're recording this on the day the movie has come out. People on social media saying this is the worst Star Wars movie ever made, like really going off on it. And I don't feel that way at all. I think it was a very enjoyable movie.
Yeah, no, definitely not the worst Star Wars movie ever made. You can just watch those prequels if you want.
Which one of the prequels is the least favorite for you?
I don't know, man. It's a tough one. Probably the second, maybe
Attack
the
of the
first.
Clones.
Yeah. They're all bad, man.
They're not that bad. Jeez.
They're bad.
They're not that bad. 3 is fantastic.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. There's a bunch of people listening, I'm sure, and I've definitely bumped into some people who are of a generation younger than I.
Yeah.
Whose favorite Star Wars films are the prequels because that's what they grew up with, which makes sense.
And I get that.
I get it.
Yeah.
I don't respect it, but I get it.
For me, the problems I have with the prequels is less about story and more about visuals. I just don't like that world of living in a computer.
Well, I mean, there's that, which felt very non-Star Wars to me based on the thing. I get that the technology is advanced. They didn't have that back then.
I just don't understand why it doesn't look as good as Jurassic Park did. It was 6 years earlier.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But aside from that, the story, dude, it was all delegations and stuffy. It just wasn't.
Here's the thing. My favorite character in all of Star Wars is the Emperor. I love the Emperor. I love the actor Ian McDiarmid, who plays this role of the Palpatine, who becomes the Emperor. Love it. And the prequels deal with a lot of him. And I love that about the prequels.
Sure, that's kind of neat.
I love seeing him become the Emperor. I love seeing Darth Vader become Darth Vader. I love that stuff. So I think that's probably why I enjoy the prequels so much. There's a lot of Palpatine, and that actor is great and phenomenal, and I love his moments.
No, he did great, and the design of this one on that weird like arm thing is cool.
So I have a question: was he a ghost of sorts, or was he alive?
No, he was alive.
So he was alive. So he did not die at the end of Return of the Jedi. Because
I guess not.
That's bizarre.
I mean, I think he died, but I think basically he talks in one of the prequels about how if you're so in tune with the Force, even as a Sith, I think it was Darth Malice or somebody, I forget who it was, figured out a way to essentially carry your consciousness over. And so I think he just basically reanimated his own corpse with his consciousness and then had help from this machine thing with all these tubes and all that kind of stuff to kind of keep it essentially alive,
So that's the moment when Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, says, "Can I learn these powers?" And I believe he goes, "Not from a Jedi." One of my favorite moments. I love it. So good. That's from episode, I think, 2. Maybe 3, but maybe 3. I don't know. They're all meshing together. Which is, speaking of meshing together, I actually want to bring up a point here. So George Lucas, in 97, when they re-released, he went back and he made changes to his original films and I get this, as a creator of something, you want it all to make sense, all to live in the same world. Now, I could say he contradicts himself by making his prequels world look so different than his original trilogy, but I actually like the fact that he brought in Ian McDiarmid. Did not play the Emperor in the original Empire Strikes Back. I believe it was a different actor. And so when they went back to do the special editions, he'd bring in the new actor portraying the role in all the other films and add his voice, or even the clones' voices, stuff like that, just so it all is cohesive, which I like. But does it drive you? How do you feel about that? Just because I know people have strong opinions about this.
No, I mean, anything you can do to kind of make things cohesive is good. You're playing in the world. You want to make sure that it all seems to flow and fit together and stuff. There's nothing I really have against that.
Okay, people hate it because he's essentially changing his original films by doing these sorts of things.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about, I definitely disagree with bringing certain things into the films for the original trilogy. The original trilogy is the original trilogy.
But you want to use effects, that's what he did.
If you want to use effects to clean up matte lines around a Rancor or something so it doesn't really stand out as much, cool. If you want to brighten the lasers and stuff like that a little bit just to kind of give them a little bit more burst of okay, fine. But when you're putting in these CGI, I don't even know, I forget what they're called, those big kind of desert beast things and whatever, you're putting all that stuff in, that I'd take issue with.
I get why he did it. It's because that's what he wanted to see when he originally made it, and they couldn't do it. He couldn't afford it. Whatever. So I get it. It's his sandbox, and it's like, let's play and let's do it the way I wanted to do it originally. Unfortunately, it doesn't all look great, but I do like the whole, adding in the actor portraying the Emperor, or adding in voices. I know a lot of people have issue with adding Hayden Christensen in at the end of Return of the Jedi when you see the
I'm not
ghost.
a fan of that.
Some people. My question is, why is he in his younger form? Like at that point, I don't really get that why that decision was made.
Well, didn't they also introduce Qui-Gon?
Qui-Gon, he's not in that. No.
Or Obi-Wan? Somebody's in there.
No, it's Yoda. It's
Oh
yeah, it's Obi-Wan.
But it's like it's
old,
like the prequel one.
No, it's old Obi-Wan.
I thought they put in the younger one.
No, it's not Ewan McGregor. No.
I don't know.
So I don't know. That's why it contradicts a little. But in any case, that's a whole other thing.
I don't know.
I do want to touch on, obviously, Carrie Fisher passed away before the filming of this film, but she is in this movie. Of course, Princess Leia passes away in this film, which makes sense. But there's a good amount of Leia moments in this movie, to the point that I'm like, what? Supposedly, this is stuff they shot for The Force Awakens that wasn't used. And I'm just like, where did this come from? Because there seem to be actors in the scenes that aren't in Force Awakens, unless they just digitally removed her and put her in other background stuff. I don't know. But there definitely seems to be stuff that I don't understand what cutting room floor this came off of.
I mean, I feel like they could have cut it out of there. I mean, the stuff that they used was more or less generic stuff, and it was when she did speak, it had stuff to do with like Rey's doubt of herself and stuff, which was a major theme in the Force Awakens and stuff. So like I could see how they might look at some scenes and go, how do we reuse this piece of dialogue here? Or how do we reuse this scene somehow? We can shoot maybe Rey's stuff separately and maybe change it so that it fits a little bit more appropriately with this new story that we have to tell. But yeah, I mean, it was certainly interesting. It didn't feel like it was clipped from somewhere else. It felt like it was a part of this.
Which is why I'm curious how much this movie really has changed. How much did they do to really make sure that the Leia stuff made sense within the film? So I don't know. I really do want to know what the original ending idea was, but I don't think we ever will, to be honest.
One of the things that was, as I think about these things, the reason why some of these newer movies fall a little bit more flat for me, and the reason why I kind of liked The Force Awakens when it came out at the time, when you watch the original trilogy, there was something so unique and mysterious and kind of special about the Jedi, the ways of the Jedi, and Luke Skywalker, who is like one of the only people still alive to wield any of those powers,
sure.
Right? And they were sparse with it. And his journey was long. He wasn't, it took him 3 movies to get to where he was by the end of that. And even when he was, Return of the Jedi, he was powerful for sure. But it didn't feel to me as powerful as almost Rey and out of the gate on the first movie in The Force Awakens. I'm like, damn, like they seem to be even more powerful than him.
Yeah, she had no training in that film, and she could do things. But they do comment on that, which I appreciated in The Force Awakens. So yes, you're right. Even in this one, the reveal for her of her essentially being a Palpatine, when she has the lightning force come out of her fingers, essentially
cool.
when she kills Chewbacca, or we think she kills Chewbacca, that was awesome to me. I was like, holy moly. Nobody's done that except for the Emperor.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. 2 things with that. Like, yes, that was certainly like really cool. But that was a moment at least I felt like should have been a bigger deal to her. And the film glossed over it really quick. So she essentially hulks out and channels the lightning from the fingertip power, which we've only seen by one other person, which is Emperor Palpatine, and blows up a ship, and she thinks she killed one of her friends, and she's just on the ship going, oh my gosh, it's my fault. And they're like, no, it's not. And the next thing you know, they're just moved on past it. And I'm like, that to me is such a humongous moment, I feel like, in her struggle between the light side or the dark side or who she is and all that. And I just feel like that could have been a really potent moment that had a ripple effect throughout the rest of the film. And I just felt like it was very shallow. They didn't really deal with it that much. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, he's alive. And then like we forget that she even did it.
It's probably a pacing thing, but I don't disagree with you. It's probably just like, move on. We don't need it. Move on, move on. It's my guess.
Yeah.
But no, I would totally take a shorter battle for great emotional moments like that.
But I mean, that should have, in other films, that would have fractured the team. She would have gone off by herself. Nobody would be able to find her. She would have been.
That would have been a whole other movie.
She kind of did some of that later on in the film where she was like, trying to chuck the lightsabers and do all that. But I mean, my point is like, even just seeing the Force ghosts in the original trilogy, you're like, oh my gosh, it was like a rare event at times. And this was really interesting and really cool. And even then it wasn't too over the top. It was just to kind of relay a message or something here or there. And this, you got them, catching lightsabers mid-grass, pulling ships out of the ocean. It's just like, they may as well just be alive and well at this point. You know what I mean? Like, just doing Jedi stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like somebody was like, you enjoyed that scoop ice cream, did you? Well, how about ice cream everything for the next week? And I'm like, dude, we get it.
I don't disagree with you.
And so, like, all these films to me is just, it's a lot of that. It's like, in the original,
too much.
In the original, it's unique and it's kind of paced out. And next thing you know, it's like, Finn can feel the Force. Leia's doing Force stuff and has her own lightsaber. Rey's got her stuff. Adam Driver's got his own stuff. It seems like everybody and their mother are Force sensitive and they can Force ghost whenever they want. And it's crazy.
Well, I actually had that issue with the prequels where when you watch the original trilogy, if you watch those lightsaber battles, they're so tame compared to what we have in the prequels or even the new ones. So that always weirded me out. I also had issue with like the technology of R2-D2. Like we see him do stuff in the prequels, which of course take place before the original trilogy, that like he could climb stairs in the prequels. And it's like, how did he lose that power all of a sudden in 4, 5, 6? So yes, the original films are honestly slow, I'm sure, for people who didn't grow up with it. I'm sure that there are, younger folks who love these new films that if they go back and watch the original films, probably feel very slow paced to them.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So it's just kind of a generational thing, and I get it.
A changing of the times for sure. But, classic storytelling needs time to breathe. You need to take your time. And what this felt like, unfortunately, even though it was the end of the saga, it just very much felt like the end to a saga that's been caught up in turmoil in terms of its direction and its vision and where it wants to go. And it ends up wrapping up in a way that you're kind of going, okay, yeah, all right. You made the best of a difficult situation here, but I really just wish they had one director. Like, I kind of wish JJ had done the whole thing. I'm a consistency person. I love that. I agree with that. Let me ask you this. What if there was no 7, 8, 9? Would you prefer it just to go back to 1 through 6? No.
So you're happy that...
Okay. I'm always a firm believer of like, look, 4, 5, and 6, the original trilogy, that's always there.
Yeah.
It's maybe not in the exact same form as when it first released, but it's always there. And so for me, I like passing the torch. I would rather have 100 more shots of a good movie in the Star Wars universe in the hopes that you still get one more.
Yeah.
Even if you fall flat a few times, it's still nice to keep taking swings.
Yeah. You mentioned the original trilogy and my brain just exploded because I remembered we get Ewok cameos in this movie.
Yeah.
I actually love that. I'm sure there are a bunch of people who rolled their eyes at that. But I was like, oh gosh, we get a moment of Ewoks at the end of celebrating, Here's
the thing. Secretly, I wanted, and I hate, don't get me wrong. Like, this is, I won't say hate. I was not the biggest fan of the Jar Jar Binks character.
Sure.
But I thought it would have been kind of cool to have a moment toward the end when nobody's showing up to help. And the first
here.
I wouldn't go that far. All right, I wouldn't necessarily have him talk, but just having a ship show up and just doing a little nod to him, older, behind the thing, showing up to help, and just a quick cutaway, just to kind of tie him back in a little bit, would have been kind of neat.
That's honestly one of my favorite things that the special edition does with the original trilogy is at the end of Return of the Jedi, when all the Ewoks are celebrating their victory, they added shots of going to all these planets we learned about in the prequels, and we see the celebration all over the galaxy, and I love that because I'm like, oh, we're tying it now. It's one cohesive unit. They look different, yes, but it's all the same world, and I love that moment. And I felt like we got a moment of that when they showed the Ewoks in this one. I'm like, yes,
that was great.
It was a beautiful moment. Also, somebody that showed up in this film that we knew about, but we haven't touched on, is Lando Calrissian. A nice little reveal. He got an applause in our audience, and it's nice to see him back. And yeah, now he's the only character. This is probably wrong, but as far as the big characters are concerned, the only one still living in the story, because Han Solo's dead.
Well,
Leia,
Chewie's alive.
Oh, Chewie's, well, yeah, he was almost dead there for a second, but Chewie's still around. So the spin-off series, Lando and Chewie. Ooh. Lando and Chewie's Adventures in the Falcon. There we go. Disney Plus.
There it is,
coming
man.
in 2023.
There it is.
I love it. So one other actor I want to mention, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but Domhnall Gleeson, who's that redheaded Nazi-like guy who, do you know who I'm talking about?
The dude who was the spy?
The spy, yes. Yeah. He ends up being a spy in this one, which I kind of loved and kind of hated, because he was...
That poor guy, you're hitting him with a Nazi-looking guy?
Oh, he
doesn't look like a Nazi.
He has the Nazi moment, and is it the 7? It's either 7 or 8. He has that Nazi salute moment. He's an evil character. He ends up being a good guy in this one, but then he's killed soon after. I think he's brilliant in these films.
No, he's great.
Brilliant.
It's got a great cast and stuff. The Dominic there from Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Oh yeah, from the guy from Lost. Yeah,
that guy
favorite.
pulled me right out every time. I was like, why is this guy in here?
That's what
Put him in a mask or something.
That's what I was talking about when I said the JJ favorites casting. Like, there are the people, his go-to people, and he's one of Dominic Monaghan, right?
Yeah. It's like,
he's one of JJ's guys.
but that's what I'm saying.
I know.
You got
you got Greg Grunberg, you got JJ, you got Kerry Russell. I mean, you got Dominic, you got Kerry Russell.
But Kerry Russell was masked.
Yeah. Greg is...
He's not, but what about the other guy from Hot Fuzz, Simon Pegg? Simon Pegg is in the Force...
Is he the Asian guy?
No. Simon Pegg's in the Force Awakens as, I think, the big, like, kind of fat, like, water, ration dude or whatever. Okay. You know,
just a voice, essentially.
He's just a voice, and he's in a costume and all that good stuff. But yeah, like, those things I'm all for.
Yeah.
But it's weird to me just to, like, have it be. He felt like it was in Lost. Like, it felt, because it was like a jungle environment. And he just comes out, and it was just, what the?
Yeah, it's a little weird. Before we move on, anything you want to add? I have one final question or thought I want to ask you, but anything you want to add before we get to that? We'll talk about it.
I think we got it.
I'm just curious what you think of her taking the Skywalker name. Because, listen, there's no blood relation between Rey and the Skywalkers. She is a Palpatine, but at the end of the film, somebody says, essentially, what's your last name? And she goes, Rey Skywalker. And I'm like, you can't just do that. You can't just make that decision.
No, there's... No, I actually liked that. Oddly. It was a little bit weird. It ties in thematically, because who was it? Was it Harrison Ford that said to Ben, there's some things in this world that's stronger than blood?
Okay.
Well, that's that moment for me. Yes, you don't have to be, you don't have to be tied by blood, because the things that the people are fighting for are, I think, above that. And the fact that she chose the Jedi, I think it's symbolic, and I think it's kind of a choose your own family type thing, and I kind of dig it.
I'm calling it now. If in 20 years there is some more Star Wars saga stuff going on, Ben and Rey had a baby, and we've got a Palpatine Skywalker going on.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and they're twins, and one is good and one is evil.
No. I mean, here's the thing. For me, at the end of the day, I'm really happy that it's done. I'm happy that it's done, because I need new stories in this world. Yeah. I don't want to keep, like, slapping back to Death Stars and Palpatines and Skywalkers. It's like, I need to just, like, shut all that down and just come up with a new and interesting story with new and interesting characters that's kind of standalone, that isn't just some homage or some, it's got some finger in the previous films. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm glad it's done, because I like to put a bow on things. And, like, I'm not going to lie, like, this is going to sound morbid and stupid, but I'll just be like, oh, God, let me live long enough to see the conclusion of whatever it is. Or I even think for other people, let John Williams live long enough to complete Star Wars.
That's kind of morbid.
It is morbid, I know. It's my dark side. But I like to see things... I like to see things from beginning to end. And 42 years, granted, I wasn't there when it started, but I got to see it all. Like, that makes me happy. I want the same thing with the Jurassic franchise. We'll see if that continues beyond this next film. I don't know. But I don't know. I just like putting the ribbon and the bow on things. And right now, the ribbon and the bow is on the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. I like that it's done. It's interesting. When The Force Awakens came, I kind of felt like that was going to be one of the new breakouts. You know what I mean? I felt like, cool, here's this new character, Rey, and she was interesting and unique enough, and she wasn't, she was a scavenger, and, but she still had that kind of humble upbringing and a rise to greatness. And like that kind of stuff I don't necessarily mind. It's just, I don't need a Lando every time. I don't need a Chewbacca every time.
Well, here's the thing I was going to say is I actually don't know if these films would do as well. I think they rely heavily on nostalgia. So having Leia and Luke and Han Solo in those films, I don't think they'd be nearly as popular if we didn't have that nostalgia throwback stuff. These characters are great. I like Poe. I like Rey. I like them all. But I think it would have to be 20 years from now when the kids who grew up with this trilogy want to go back and see those characters. I'm not like hoping, oh God, I hope I get to see Rey again. I don't feel that way. I'm like, oh, cool.
I love Rey. She's like one of my favorite characters in all the films. I think she's amazing. And here's the thing. We absolutely needed the old guard in these films.
Yeah.
I'm really happy they brought them in, because if you just kind of rebooted the franchise and we didn't get to see any of the post-life after the original trilogy from these characters, it'd be a bit disappointment. So I'm glad they did it. But I'm also glad, like, cool, we've seen it, they're in bed, like,
yeah,
night, like, bringing the new stuff, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, overall, I would give the film, I'd give it like an A-. I really enjoyed it, which is probably way higher than most people would give it. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, no, not an A-.
I enjoyed it.
I would say it's a solid B-.
Okay.
Maybe a C+, somewhere in that ballpark.
I wouldn't go as low as a C+, but I think a B- is fair as well.
If the prequels to me are F territory,
it's not. Episode 3 is fantastic,
and you have Empire as A+. This is like a B-, a C+.
Yeah, maybe an A- is a little high, maybe a B+. I don't know. It's a very enjoyable movie. I certainly didn't hate it. I don't know where those haters, what they're hating on so much, but I enjoyed it. Jaw-dropping moments, laughed a lot. That's one thing I will say, watching from 1 through 9 now in 1 week's period of time, these films are really funny. They have a lot of funny moments.
Yeah, I mean, I see where haters can hate. I definitely see where haters can hate, because if you're a purist and you enjoy kind of where Star Wars came from.
Well, then just watch the original trilogy. Like,
yeah, I get it, but the standard is not the same. The standard is not the same. The original trilogy set a bar, all three of them. Even if you disliked Ewoks, it was still a good film. And these fall short of that a little bit.
Listen, the difference is this. The original trilogy was developed by a man who had a dream and a vision. These films are made by a corporation now. It's just the reality of it. Like, J.J. Abrams, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he loves that world and stuff.
I can't excuse that. They're a corporation, but they should still be able to know a good story.
Yeah, but what do you think is more important to them? A good story or selling toys?
But that's where the haters are going to hate.
Absolutely. I get it. But it's the reality. Like, George Lucas did his Star Wars movies. When he tried to do it again, everybody hated on him for it.
And by the way, Lucas did tell good stories with the original trilogy and sold toys. So it's not mutually exclusive.
I understand. I get it. It's the mentality of one man versus a business trying to do something, you know? Like, I'm sure J.J. Abrams had to answer to people that George Lucas did not have to answer to, you know? And,
sure.
and people love him for that and hate him for that. That, you know, the first time around, people loved him because he was just creating his vision his way. And then the second time around, people lambasted him for it. Like, to the point that, this is going on a tangent here, but I actually kind of feel bad for George Lucas. I shouldn't, because he's fine and he's set. But, like, he may have all the money in the world, but the fact is, he put his heart and soul into something with those prequels, and people ripped him apart to the point that he said, I want to sell this, because I don't want to deal with this anymore, because I genuinely think he was hurt by that. And listen, that's the audience's, it's their right to have those opinions. I just think people were overly mean to him in a way that is just kind of really, I want to say something terrible. I'll just go with rude. That's where I feel with that.
Look, man.
It can't be easy for him to watch this happen in his lifetime.
Yes, I'm sympathetic, and I feel bad that people kind of ripped into him a little bit after the prequels. However, it was well known well before he touched those prequels how much those films defined a generation and how much they kind of sparked imagination in kids, in childhoods and all that kind of stuff, and how beloved they were the world over, long before he ever made those prequels. So to go into it without recognizing what people loved about them, and if you did recognize it, just to throw it away and make it whatever you want, simply because you say, it's mine, you deserve a little bit of heat. You deserve heat. I don't care.
Sure, but I think it's his right.
It is. Sure, it is. Right.
It's his universe. To me, he can do what he wants. We can disagree with it.
He can, but don't do that and expect not to be,
I get you. To be lambasted a bit. I get it.
You can do it, but don't complain about it.
Yeah.
Own it. And just be fine with it.
Have you watched the video of him? And I get it. George Lucas in general doesn't show much emotion, so this could just be him being him. But have you seen the video of him signing the paperwork to sell it to Disney? It's him and Bob Iger. He feels defeated to me. Like, it feels melancholy. And it's honestly a video I don't really like watching because it doesn't feel like a happy moment. And, I believe all the money he made from that, he gave to charity, which I, honestly, when I heard that, made me, tear up. This is unbelievable. To be that position in life is unbelievable, number one. But just, you can say, oh, well, he's already got billions. But guess what? There are a lot of people that if you hand them $4 billion, they could have been like, I'll give $2 billion away and keep $2. He was just like, give it all away. And I just think that's beautiful. Mad respect for the man. Even if you don't like everything he does.
Oh, definitely. He created, THX. He created ILM. He created the entire Star Wars saga. It's huge respect, and I'm super appreciative of it. It stinks sometimes when the world sees it one way and the creator sees it another. It's definitely Frankensteinian. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's also that question of oh gosh, does the audience care more about this property than George Lucas does? And honestly, they might at this point. I feel like audience members kind of take it more personally than he does in some cases. It's weird. I don't know. Anyways, we're just going on and on here. I'm going to wrap it up unless there's anything else you want to touch upon before we get some trivia.
No, I just think it was a good. I think go see it and go see it. Enjoy it. Don't judge it too harshly. It did a difficult task of wrapping things up, and it's done. On to the next.
The story has been told. But in any case, folks, I think that means it's trivia time. All right, Chris, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
You hit me first.
Okay, well, when the original Star Wars film came out, it was simply known as Star Wars, but eventually this Episode 4, A New Hope, was added to the title, making us realize, oh goodness, there's more that happened before this story. Since this is Episode 4, there's obviously a 1, 2, and 3. I want to know, when was this Episode 4, A New Hope, introduced into Star Wars?
I have no idea.
Well, it started in a book in 1979. It was a book called The Art of Star Wars, and it was officially added to the opening crawl. Official sources state that the change was made at the theatrical re-release in 1981. So the first time we ever saw it as part of that crawl where it said Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, 1981. The film originally came out in 1977. So, yeah, it's it's weird. And I always wondered that as a kid. I was like, when this first came out, weren't people confused? But,
Well, going off of that, kind of staying in line with the title, do you know what the original name of the Star Wars movie was when it first went into production?
It was, it was Star something, right? Mm-hmm. It was Star...
But it's much longer than that, but yes.
Oh. Was Skywalker in the title?
No.
I was thinking it was star in another word instead of wars, but I guess I'm wrong.
No, you're right about that.
Oh.
It was Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as taken from the Journal of Wills, Saga 1, The Star Wars.
That's a long title. I think they were smart. Whoever made the decision to shorten the title made a good decision, I would say. But in any case, Chris, thank you so much for going on this epic adventure with me to the Chinese Theater on opening night, late into the night, and for talking about it here on the show. Thank you
No worries,
so much.
it was a blast.
Now, folks, this is the final episode of Season 6 of Disney Coast to Coast. The podcast will return for its 7th season on Wednesday, February 5th of 2020, and I have a special guest interview that I've already recorded waiting for you. But don't worry, because I won't leave you completely hanging for the next month or so. During the hiatus, I'll be releasing short, mini episodes of the podcast every Wednesday. I think they'll whet your appetite as you wait for the Season 7 premiere. As a podcast listener myself, I know that sometimes it's easy to fall behind listening to new episode releases with your busy schedules. I hope that you'll take this hiatus time to go back and listen to any episodes you may have missed, or even just listen to some of your favorites again. And if you'd like to share them with a friend, that's great as well. There are literally hundreds of episodes to choose from, and this 6th season has broken the record for most episodes in a year. We are now just a short time away from entering the next decade, so if you haven't done so yet, head on over to DisneyCoastToCoast.com to order yourself a DCTC 2020 desk calendar or wall calendar featuring original Disney photos I've taken around the parks. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a Disney Coast to Coast listener. I can't believe we're heading into Season 7. I'll talk with you again real soon, but for now, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.